Hello everyone and welcome to a new video dedicated to our beloved Snoopy and the world of Peanuts. Today we pause on a Peanut strip from January 10th, 1951, which at first glance seems like just a casual exchange between Charlie Brown and Patty on a warm day, but actually reveals how the simplest misunderstandings can turn into moments of disarming irony and a small lesson in spontaneous comedy. Schulz manages to transform a bland comment about the heat into a joke that captures the light, childlike humor of the Peanuts, while also carrying that small sense of funny loneliness that Charlie Brown always brings with him. It is one of those strips that still work even after more than 70 years, because it shows how the Peanuts characters can make us smile without any tricks, simply through their way of seeing the world, with innocence, stubbornness, and a thin layer of hidden sadness beneath a single joke. In this strip, Patty appears as the serious and direct little girl who tries to express a real need, while Charlie Brown once again reveals his tendency to flip situations around with jokes that make him laugh first, creating that involuntary comedy that made this comic great. It is a small vignette that captures the spirit of the Peanuts, ready to offer us a light moment of reflection and a genuine smile. In the first vignette, we see Patty sitting on the floor, hot and exhausted, exclaiming that it's hot. This small beginning immediately sets a summer context or the sense of a room without air, a simple but essential detail that draws us into that suffocating atmosphere many readers could relate to in the 1950s, when air conditioning wasn't common. Schulz uses sweat as the only graphic element to convey the heat, a detail that, within the minimalism of the Peanuts, becomes a universal sign to communicate discomfort while maintaining a visual language that is readable to anyone of any age. Moreover, the fact that Patty is sitting on the floor instead of on a chair strengthens the feeling of tiredness, while her lowered gaze and resigned expression turn this simple vignette into a portrait of real childhood, where even the heat becomes a difficult obstacle to face, a moment that, in the poetics of the Peanuts, manages to bring a smile while evoking memories of slow, quiet summers. In the second vignette, Charlie Brown approaches Patty, asking if she is really feeling hot, with an expression of almost sincere curiosity, while Patty energetically confirms it. This interaction already shows the differences between the two. Patty, direct and realistic, expresses her discomfort without filters, feeling no need to hide what she feels, even in a trivial situation like being hot. Charlie Brown, on the other hand, tries to understand the situation but brings in that questioning tone that reveals his emotional awkwardness and his desire to interact, even though he doesn't really know how to react to the feelings of others. It is a small example of how, in the Peanuts, even a simple "Are you really feeling hot?" can become a window into the characters' personalities, showing his timid curiosity towards others and his desire to find his own place in everyday conversations, even if he remains uncertain about what to do after receiving the answer. In the third vignette, Charlie Brown replies that Patty doesn't seem all that warm to him, creating a moment of misunderstanding that is one of the central points of the strip. This reply turns a simple exchange into a small comic paradox, creating that typical naivete that characterizes him in the Peanuts. It is a moment that reveals how Schulz knew how to use children's innocence to build a subtle and at the same time melancholic humor, with a line that seems simple but actually contains the loneliness and communication struggles typical of the characters. Patty remains silent with an exclamation mark that captures her astonishment, a symbol Schulz uses to convey wordless surprise. This graphic sign becomes a true trademark in the Peanuts vignettes, showing how refined the balance of silence and the unspoken can be, and how even a small misunderstanding can become an unforgettable moment for the reader. In the fourth vignette, Charlie Brown walks away laughing, saying that he always gets his own laughs, while Patty stands up to chase after him, quite annoyed by his joke. Here, the circle of the strip closes, with an ending that blends the lightness of childhood with Charlie Brown's character, always ready to laugh at his own jokes, even when no one else finds them funny. This vignette shows the typical rhythm of the Peanuts, where the final movement breaks the static nature of the dialogue with an exit that captures all the energy of the strip, leaving space for the reader to reflect on how sometimes the simplest jokes can become memorable precisely because they are tied to the spontaneity and immediacy that are so typical of the Peanuts. It is in this small detail that we can see the strip's ability to leave a lasting impression, transforming a simple laugh into a moment that reveals the characters' personalities and the everyday atmosphere that makes the Peanuts unique. This strip was published on January 10th, 1951, a period when the Peanuts were still building the personalities of the characters, but Charlie Brown was already defined as the child who laughs at his own jokes, often misunderstood by others. It is interesting to note how Patty, who during this period had a much more prominent role than in later years, represents one of the most pragmatic and least dreamy female figures in the group, unlike characters like Lucy or Sally, who would appear later. Charlie Brown's final joke is an example of that calm yet profound humor that Schulz knew how to write, a way to represent childhood without sugarcoating it, showing the spontaneity of children and their unique way of interpreting words and situations. Moreover, the strip uses the repetition of the concept of heat to build a small crescendo, keeping the narration simple yet effective, a balance that Schulz mastered with skill. These early Peanuts strips are a precious archive for understanding how the author developed the psychology of the characters through minimal but meaningful situations that remain relevant even decades later.
If you enjoyed yourselves, subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and activate the little bell to stay updated, and see you next, friends.